Two men stood before the crowd. One, a violent criminal. The other, a man known for healing the sick and raising the dead. Only one would walk free. And in a moment that shocked history, the crowd chose the criminal. Not the healer, not the teacher, not the man called Jesus, but a prisoner named Barabbas. Why did they choose him? And what happened to Barabbas after he was set free? Because his story didn't end at the prison gates. In many ways, it had only just begun. The prisoner in the shadows Jerusalem was restless. The city overflowed with pilgrims. Roman soldiers filled the streets. Tension hung in the air like smoke before a fire. It was the time of Passover, a sacred celebration of freedom. Yet inside the Roman prison, a man waited in chains. His name was Barabbas, and he was no ordinary prisoner. Barabbas was known as a rebel, a troublemaker, a man accused of violence against Roman rule. Some called him a freedom fighter. Others called him a murderer. Either way, his fate was sealed. Execution. A Roman cross waited for him. Heavy wood, cold iron nails. And the end of his life. But unknown to Barabbas, another prisoner had just been arrested, a man named Jesus of Nazareth. And everything was about to change. Mini-hook transition. Yet what Barabbas didn't know was that his death sentence was about to become someone else's destiny. Hey, dangerous custom morning arrived. The Roman governor, Pontius Pilate, stepped onto the stone platform. Before him stood a restless crowd. Behind him, two prisoners. One, Barabbas, chains around his wrists, eyes hardened by survival. The other, Jesus, bruised, silent, calm. There was a custom during Passover. Each year, the governor would release one prisoner chosen by the people, a strange tradition, but one meant to calm the crowds. Pilate saw an opportunity. He believed Jesus was innocent. He found no crime deserving death. So he offered the crowd a choice: Barabbas or Jesus. It seemed obvious. One was violent. The other was peaceful. One had taken lives. The other had healed them. Surely the people would choose Jesus. But something unexpected was already happening behind the scenes. Voices were whispering. Religious leaders moved through the crowd. They stirred anger. They planted hatred. They pushed the people toward one terrifying decision. And suddenly, the crowd began to shout. Not for mercy. Not for justice, but for Barabbas. Many-hook transition. And what happened next still echoes through history. The choice that changed history. Pilate raised his hand. Silence fell. Then he asked the question that would change the world forever. Which one do you want me to release to you? Barabbas or Jesus? For a moment, time seemed to stop. Barabbas stood frozen, perhaps expecting death. Jesus stood silently, unresisting. Then the crowd roared, "Give us Barabbas." The sound thundered through the stone courtyard. Pilate hesitated. He asked again, "What shall I do with Jesus?" The answer came like a storm. Crucify him, not once, not twice, but again and again. Crucify him. Pilate washed his hands before the crowd, a symbol of innocence, yet the decision had been made. Barabbas. Chains were unlocked. Iron fell to the ground. The prisoners stepped forward. Free. And Jesus. Jesus was led away to the cross meant for Barabbas. Many hook transition, but what happened inside Barabbas' mind in that moment of freedom remains one of history's greatest mysteries. The man who took his place, imagine standing there, a man condemned to die, expecting nails, expecting pain, expecting death, and suddenly another man takes your place. That was Barabbas. Reality. He walked out alive because Jesus did not. Some scholars believe Barabbas watched from an eye distance, watching as Jesus carried the cross, watching as soldiers nailed him to the wood, watching as the sky darkened. The cross that should have held Barabbas now held Jesus, and this moment carries deep meaning. Barabbas represents humanity, guilty, broken, deserving punishment. Jesus represents sacrifice. Innocent, willing, taking the place of another. The story of Barabbas is not just history. It is symbolism, a picture of substitution, one life exchanged for another. But the mystery doesn't end there, because history grows strangely silent about what happened next. Many hook transition. Did Barabbas disappear into the shadows, or did his freedom change him forever? The silent aftermath. Barabbas walked free that day. Free air filled his lungs. Sunlight touched his face. Yet freedom can feel heavy when someone else paid the price. Some ancient traditions suggest that Barabbas later followed Jesus from afar. Watching, thinking, questioning everything. Did guilt haunt him? Did gratitude change him? Did he understand what had truly happened? We may never know, but one truth remains impossible to ignore. On that day in Jerusalem, a guilty man walked free, and an innocent man took his place. Not by accident, not by mistake, but by choice. And perhaps that is why the story of Barabbas still matters today. Because in many ways, his story is our story. A life spared, a second chance given, a debt paid by another, somewhere in history. A prison door opened, chains fell. A man stepped into freedom, not because he deserved it, but because someone else took his cross. And the question that still echoes today is this: if you were Barabbas, what would you do with your freedom? Fade to silence. Fade to darkness. And let the question remain.